The explosion hit at 400. The field hospital's west wall cracked open, dust rolling through the intake bay like smoke. Navy SEALs stumbled in, 3 wounded, 1 screaming, all bleeding. The base was under siege. The doctors were gone, evacuated 2 hours before the attack. The comms were dead. The only person left in the surgical tent was a combat nurse nobody remembered hiring. Her name was Rivera. She didn't run. She didn't shout. She just stepped into the blood and the chaos like she'd been waiting for it. The SEALs didn't know her. They were about to. Rivera had been at FOB Kandahar for 3 weeks. And no one knew her first name. She worked the night shift in the field hospital, a sprawling grid of canvas tents and prefab modules that smelled like antiseptic and dust. The base was small, remote, tucked into a valley 2 hours south of the main airfield. It served as a staging point for SEAL Team 6 rotations, special operations units that came and went like ghosts. The medical staff was minimal, 2 surgeons, 4 nurses, a handful of medics. Rivera was the newest. She took the shifts no one wanted, midnight to 8, when the desert went cold and the only sound was the hum of generators. She didn't complain. She didn't socialize. She didn't eat in the mess tent with the others. She just showed up, did her job, and disappeared into her bunk before anyone could ask her questions. The SEALs barely noticed her. To them, she was furniture, a pair of hands that checked vitals, logged medications, restocked trauma kits. She was short, maybe 5'4", with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun, and eyes that didn't make contact unless she was asking about symptoms. She wore the same green scrubs every shift, sleeves rolled to the elbows, no jewelry, no patches, no identifiers. Her voice was low, flat, efficient. She didn't waste words. She didn't waste motion. Most of the team thought she was Army. A few guessed Air Force. No one asked. Garza noticed her first. He was the oldest on the team, 38. A senior chief with 12 years in, the kind of operator who watched everything and said little. He came into the hospital 3 nights into a rotation, a minor shrapnel wound in his forearm from a training mishap. Nothing serious. She cleaned it, irrigated it, stitched it without numbing. He didn't flinch, she didn't comment, but she moved like someone who'd done this 1,000 times. No hesitation, no second guessing. Her hands were steady, her fingers precise. She tied off the sutures with the same mechanical rhythm a rifleman used to strip a weapon. When she was done, she wrapped the wound, gave him a blister pack of antibiotics, and told him to keep it dry. "You're good at this," he said. "It's my job," she replied. She didn't look up. He watched her for a moment longer. There was something in the way she carried herself, something that didn't match the role. She moved like someone used to carrying weight. Her posture was too straight, her shoulders too square, her awareness too sharp. When she walked, her eyes swept the room in a pattern, exits first, then people, then hands. It was subtle. Instinctive, the kind of thing you didn't unlearn, you prior service, he asked. She paused, just for a second, then she shook her head. No, it was a lie, he knew it. But he didn't push. The rest of the team didn't notice. They came through the hospital for the usual reasons: twisted ankles, dehydration, insomnia meds, the occasional hangover they wouldn't admit to. Rivera treated them all the same. Quiet, professional, forgettable. She didn't laugh at their jokes. She didn't ask about their missions. She didn't try to fit in. One of the younger SEALs, Morrison, 24, fresh off his first deployment, started calling her the Ghost. Not to her face. Just when the team was sitting around the hooch at night, cleaning rifles and talking shit. "She's weird, man," Morrison said one night, flipping a knife between his fingers. "Like she doesn't even look at you. Just does her thing and walks away. Maybe she's just focused," Garza said. "Or maybe she's got the personality of a fucking MRE, another SEAL, Davis, added, grinning. "I asked her where she was from. Know what she said? West. That's it, just West. Like, what the hell does that mean?" They all laughed. Rivera wasn't there to hear it. She was never there, but Garza didn't laugh. He kept thinking about the way she'd stitched his arm. The way her breathing had stayed even, controlled, like she was counting beats in her head. The way she de-scanned the room when she walked in, cataloging threats that didn't exist. He'd seen that behavior before, in operators. In people who'd been downrange long enough that the switch never fully turned off. 3 weeks in, Rivera still hadn't spoken more than 30 words to anyone. She kept her head down. She kept her distance, and the SEALs kept ignoring her. That was about to change. The mortars hit at 0417. Rivera was alone in the surgical tent, restocking trauma kits under the flicker of a single overhead lamp. The first explosion was distant, a low crump that rolled across the valley like thunder. She stopped, listened, counted. 3 seconds later, the second one hit closer, then the third. The tent walls shuddered. Dust rained from the ceiling seams. She didn't run. She moved to the radio on the desk and keyed the mic. "Medevac, this is Surgical 1. What's our status?" Static, she tried again. Nothing. The fourth mortar landed inside the perimeter. The lights went out. Emergency floods kicked in 2 seconds later, bathing everything in red. The base alarm started screaming, a long mechanical wail that meant one thing. They were under attack. Rivera clicked on a headlamp and kept working. She pulled the trauma kits off the shelf, lined them up on the central table, and opened the blood fridge. 4 units of ONEG, 6 of OPOs. She pulled them all, set them in the cooler, and prepped the IV trees. Her hands didn't shake. Her breathing didn't change. She moved through the checklist like she was counting reps at the gym. The radio crackled. A voice, tense, clipped. "All medical personnel, initiate evac protocol. I say again, initiate evac protocol." Transport inbound in 12 minutes. Rivera keyed the mic. "Surgical 1 copies. What about incoming wounded?" "Negative, full evac, no exceptions." She looked at the empty beds, the prepped kits. The blood she just pulled, then she clicked the mic again. "Surgical 1 staying on site. Someone has to be here if casualties roll in." There was a pause. "Then that's not protocol." "It is now," she said, and switched the radio off. 5 minutes later, the first casualties came through the door, 3 SEALs, all walking but barely. Garza was in front, one arm wrapped around his ribs, blood soaking through his shirt. Behind him was Morrison, limping hard, his pant leg shredded and dark with blood. The third was Davis, holding his left hand against his chest, fingers mangled and dripping. Rivera met them at the entrance. "Sit, now." Garza blinked at her. "Where's everyone else?" "Gone." "You've got me." "Jesus Christ, sit down, Chief." Her voice didn't rise, it didn't need to. Garza sat, she moved fast. Morrison first, tourniquet above the knee, scissors through the pant leg, gauze packed into the wound. She worked without speaking, her hands moving in sharp, economical bursts. Morrison hissed through his teeth. She didn't apologize, she just kept going. "Where'd they hit you from?" she asked. "North Ridge," Garza said, breathing shallow. "Maybe 200 meters. Small arms RPGs, maybe a dozen fighters. We pushed them back, but how many are left out there?" "I don't know, 5, 6. What's the base posture?" Garza stared at her. "What? Are we locked down or still taking contact?" She didn't look up. She was already moving to Davis, pulling his hand into the light, inspecting the damage. We're locked down, I think." "Perimeter's holding. QRFN route. Should be 20 minutes maybe." She nodded. "Good, keep pressure here." She pressed Davis's good hand over the gauze on his bad one. Then she turned to Garza. Shirt off, he peeled it off, wincing. She ran her hands along his ribs, firm, methodical. He sucked in a breath. She didn't slow down. "Fractured," she said. 2 ribs, maybe 3, no flail." "You're lucky. Doesn't feel lucky you're breathing. That's lucky." She wrapped his torso in compression bandaging, pulling it tight. "Don't take deep breaths. Don't twist. Don't do anything stupid." "I'm a SEAL," Morrison muttered. "Stupid's in the job description." Rivera didn't smile. She was already back at the supply cart, pulling meds, syringes, saline. Her movements were faster now, but still controlled. No panic, no hesitation. Garza watched her hands. They were steady, surgical. "Precise, you've done this before," he said. She didn't answer. "I mean, you've done this under fire." She glanced at him, just for a second. Then she turned back to Morrison, slid an IV into his arm, and hung a saline bag. "Everyone's done something before. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting." The building shook. Another explosion, closer this time. The lights flickered. Morrison flinched. Davis swore. Rivera didn't move. She just looked toward the door, her head tilted slightly, listening. "Counting, that was inside the wire," Garza said. "I know. They're pushing the perimeter, I know. You need to sit still and let me finish." Her voice was calm, flat. But there was something underneath it now, something cold and sharp. "You're in no shape to fight. None of you are, so stay put, stay quiet, and let me do my job." Garza stared at her. She wasn't asking, she was ordering. Morrison caught it too. "Who the hell are you?" Rivera didn't answer. She pulled a roll of medical tape, secured Morrison's IV line, and moved to the cabinet. She opened the bottom drawer and pulled out a pistol, a Beretta M9, standard issue. She checked the mag, racked the slide, and set it on the table next to the trauma kits. Davis blinked. "Wait, what, just a precaution?" she said. "Nurses don't carry," Morrison said. "This one does." Garza leaned forward, ignoring the pain in his ribs. "Rivera, talk to me." She looked at him. Really looked at him, her eyes were steady. Dark. There was no fear in them, no doubt, just a cold, mechanical certainty that made his skin prickle. "I'm a nurse," she said. "That's all you need to know." Then the door exploded inward and the shooting started. The door didn't break, it buckled. The frame splintered inward with a crack like a gunshot, and two men in dark fatigues rushed through the opening, rifles up, voices shouting in Pashto. The first one swept left. The second swept right. Rivera moved before they cleared the threshold. She grabbed the pistol off the table, dropped into a crouch behind the surgical cart, and fired twice. Both rounds hit the first man's center mass. He went down hard, his rifle clattering across the floor. The second fighter spun toward her, finger tightening on the trigger, but she was already moving, rolling right, coming up behind the supply rack, firing again. One round caught him in the shoulder. He stumbled back, yelling, and she fired a fourth time. He dropped. The entire exchange took 4 seconds. The SEALs didn't move. They just stared. Rivera didn't look at them. She was already up, moving toward the door, pistol raised, eyes scanning the dark hallway beyond. She stepped over the first body, checked the second, and kicked both rifles away. Then she pulled the door shut, or what was left of it, and dragged a supply cabinet in front of it. It wouldn't hold long, but it would buy time. She turned back to the SEALs. Her face was calm. Her breathing was steady. "We need to move you," she said. Garza found his voice. "What the hell was that? 2 hostiles." "There'll be more, I know." She grabbed Morrison under the arm, hauled him to his feet. Back corner, behind the X-ray partition. Now Morrison limped forward, leaning on her. Davis followed, clutching his hand. Garza stood, ribs screaming, and moved with them. Rivera guided them behind a heavy lead-lined partition in the back of the tent, a small alcove used for portable imaging. It wasn't cover, but it was concealment. "Stay down," she said. "Don't move. Don't make noise." "What are you doing?" Garza asked. "Keeping you alive." She turned and walked back into the main room. The overhead floods were still on, casting everything in harsh red light. She killed them. The room went dark. Just the faint glow of the emergency exit signs and her headlamp, which she switched off. She moved by memory now, circling the perimeter, positioning medical trays, IV stands, anything that could trip, snag, or slow an advance. She pulled the blood cooler into the center aisle. Shifted the crash cart to block the sightline from the door. Created a maze. Then she crouched behind the central table, pistol in hand, and waited. The SEALs watched from the shadows. Morrison's breathing was too loud. Davis was gripping his mangled hand like a lifeline. Garza just stared at the outline of Rivera's silhouette, perfectly still, perfectly quiet. "A shadow among shadows. She's setting an ambush," he whispered. "In a hospital." Morrison hissed back. "She's done this before." "No shit." 30 seconds passed. A minute, the base alarm was still wailing outside, distant gunfire crackling in the dark. Then footsteps, boots on gravel, voices low, cautious. At least 3, maybe 4, the cabinet in front of the door shifted. Someone was pushing it. Rivera adjusted her stance. Her finger rested alongside the trigger guard, not on it. Not yet. The cabinet scraped aside. A flashlight beam cut through the doorway, sweeping left to right. A figure stepped in, careful, rifle raised, scanning. Behind him, 2 more. They moved in a staggered line, clearing corners, weapons tight to their shoulders. Trained. Disciplined, Rivera let them come. The first man stepped past the crash cart. The second moved toward the supply racks. The third stayed near the door, covering their 6. They were coordinating in whispers, hand signals, professional. Rivera rose from behind the table like smoke. She didn't announce herself. She didn't shout. She just fired. The first man dropped. The second spun toward her, muzzle flashing, rounds punching into the table, the wall, the ceiling. Rivera was already gone, sliding left behind the X-ray partition, circling, repositioning. The third man shouted something and opened fire, spraying the room. His rounds hit equipment, shattered glass, tore through canvas. But she wasn't there anymore. She came up behind him, one hand locked around his rifle, twisting it down and away. The other drove the pistol into his ribs and fired twice. He collapsed. She stripped the rifle from his grip, checked the mag, half full, and slung it across her back. Then she moved to the second fighter, who was scrambling for cover behind the blood cooler. She didn't give him time. 2 rounds, center mass. Silence. The room went still. Rivera stood in the dark, breathing slow and even, scanning for movement. Nothing. She checked each body, confirmed dead, no comms, no grenades. Then she moved back to the door, pulled it shut again, and stacked 2 more cabinets in front of it. She turned. The SEALs were staring at her from the partition. Morrison's mouth was open. Davis looked like he was going to be sick. Garza's eyes were locked on her, his face unreadable. Rivera walked over, crouched in front of them, and checked Morrison's IV line. Still good. She checked Davis's hand, still wrapped. She looked at Garza. "You okay?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. He was still trying to process what he'd just seen, the way she'd moved. The way she'd controlled the space, the angles, the timing. The way she'd turned a medical tent into a kill zone. "Who the hell are you?" he said quietly. Rivera stood. "I'm a nurse." "Bullshit." She looked at him for a long moment. Then she turned away, picked up the rifle, and checked the chamber. "QRF should be here soon. Stay down until they clear the building." "Rivera, that's all you get, Chief." Outside, the gunfire was slowing. Voices shouted in English now, Marines rolling through the base, clearing sectors. Rivera moved to the door, listened, then stepped outside. The SEALs heard her calling out to the Marines, identifying herself, directing them toward the hospital. 2 minutes later, a fire team swept in, weapons raised. They found 3 dead insurgents and 3 wounded SEALs sitting in the dark. One of the Marines looked at Garza. "Who secured this position?" Garza glanced toward the door. Rivera was gone. "The nurse," he said. The Marine frowned. "What nurse?" "Exactly," Garza muttered. They found her 20 minutes later, back in the main tent, stitching up a Marine who'd taken shrapnel to the shoulder. Her hands were steady. Her face was calm. The rifle was gone. The pistol was back in the drawer. She worked in silence like nothing had happened. Garza walked up, ribs wrapped, arm in a sling. He stood there for a long time, watching her work. She didn't look up. "I'm going to find your file," he said. She tied off the suture, snipped the thread. "Good luck with that. I'm serious." "So am I." She finally looked at him. Her eyes were tired, not from the fight, from something older, something heavier. "I'm just a nurse, Chief," she said quietly. Let it go, but Garza couldn't, and he wouldn't. The base went quiet after the breach was sealed. The insurgents had pulled back into the hills, leaving behind 12 dead and a perimeter full of shrapnel scars. The QRF stayed through dawn, reinforcing the wire, sweeping for secondary threats. By 800, the sun was up, and the field hospital was running on fumes and adrenaline. Rivera worked straight through. She triaged 9 casualties, stabilized 4 critical, assisted in 2 emergency surgeries. She didn't stop, didn't sit, didn't eat. She moved between patients with the same quiet efficiency she'd always had, but now the other medical staff watched her differently. They'd heard what happened. Whispers traveled fast on a small base. The SEALs watched her too. Garza sat on a cot in the recovery area, ribs wrapped tight, watching her check vitals on a Marine with a sucking chest wound. She worked in silence, adjusting the chest seal, marking the IV drip rate on a chart. Her face showed nothing, no pride, no relief. Just the same blank focus she'd had since day one. Morrison limped over and sat down next to Garza, his leg bandaged and splinted. "She won't talk to me," he said quietly. "She won't talk to anyone." I tried to thank her. She walked away. Garza nodded. He tried too. She'd cut him off before he could finish the sentence. Davis joined them, his left hand wrapped in heavy gauze, fingers immobilized. "I asked one of the other nurses about her. Know what they said?" "What? They don't know her either. She showed up 3 weeks ago with transfer orders, worked nights, never spoke to anyone. They thought she was just shy." Morrison snorted. "Shy?" "Right." Garza didn't laugh. He was still thinking about the way she'd moved in the dark. The way she'd turned off the lights, set the ambush, controlled the room like she'd rehearsed it 100 times. That wasn't training you picked up in nursing school. That was muscle memory. Combat memory. "I'm going to find out," Garza said. "Find out what? Who she is?" Morrison raised an eyebrow. "How?" "Her personnel file. You think they'll just hand it over?" "No," Garza said. "But I know someone who owes me a favor." It took him 4 hours and 2 encrypted calls to get the file. It came through on a secure tablet, flagged with so many redactions it looked like someone had taken a Sharpie to half the pages. But there was enough. Name: Rivera Elena J. Branch, United States Marine Corps MOS. 372, Critical Skills Operator Force Reconnaissance Service Dates, redacted to redacted deployments. 2. Afghanistan. Redacted and redacted. Discharge status, honorable. Medical reason for discharge, redacted current assignment. Contracted medical support DoD transitional program. Garza stared at the screen. Force recon, that explained everything. The movement, the shooting, the cold precision, she wasn't just prior service. She was an operator, elite reconnaissance, deep insertion, direct action. The kind of Marine who went places no one else could go and did things no one else could do. He scrolled down. Most of the mission details were redacted, but one section caught his eye. Incident report, redacted classification. Secret/NOFORN summary. Operation resulted in redacted casualties. Subject Rivera sustained redacted. Psychological evaluation recommended. Subject declined extended treatment. Voluntary transition to medical support role approved under redacted. Program. Garza read it twice. Then he closed the file and sat back, exhaling slowly. She hadn't just left the Marine Corps. She walked away from the fight, and judging by the tone of the report, it hadn't been an easy exit. He found her that night in the surgical tent, alone, cleaning blood off the floor. The base was quiet now, locked down under curfew. The emergency lights were off. She worked by headlamp, scrubbing dried blood from the tile in long, methodical strokes. Garza stood in the doorway for a moment, watching. She didn't look up. "You don't have to do that," he said. "The cleaners will handle it in the morning." "I know," she said. She kept scrubbing. He walked in, pulled up a stool, and sat down. His ribs ached. He ignored it. "I read your file," he said. Her hand stopped. Just for a second. Then she kept going. "Force recon," Garza continued. "2 deployments, honorable discharge, transition to medical." "That about cover it." She didn't answer. "You could have told us." "Why?" she said quietly. "What difference would it make?" "It would have made a lot of difference." "To who?" "You." She looked up at him now, her eyes hard. "You would have treated me different, asked me questions. Expected me to be something I'm not anymore. You saved our lives. I did my job. That wasn't a nurse's job." She stood, dropping the brush into the bucket. Water sloshed over the side. "Then maybe I did the wrong job," Garza frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" She pulled off her gloves, tossed them into the trash, and leaned against the table. For the first time since he'd met her, she looked tired. "Not physically. Deeper than that, I left that life for a reason," she said. "I didn't want to carry a rifle anymore. Didn't want to make those calls. Didn't want to be the person who decides who lives and who doesn't." She looked at the blood-stained floor. "I wanted to save people. Not kill them. You did both tonight." "Yeah." Her voice was flat. "I did." Garza studied her. "You feel guilty about it, wouldn't you?" "No," he said honestly. "They came here to kill us. You stopped them." "That's not something to feel bad about." She shook her head. "You don't get it. I spent 2 years trying to be someone else, trying to put that part of me away. And tonight it came back like I never left, like it was just waiting." She looked at him. "That's what scares me." Garza didn't respond right away. He understood what she was saying. He'd seen it before. Operators who got out tried to go civilian, tried to be normal. Most of them couldn't. The switch didn't turn off. It just went quiet. "What happened?" he asked. "On your last deployment, she was quiet for a long time. Then she sat down on the edge of the table, hands folded in her lap. We were tasked with a HVT extraction," she said. "High-value target deep in the mountains. Intel said he was alone. 3 guards, maybe 4, clean in, clean out." She exhaled slowly. "Intel was wrong." Garza waited. There were civilians in the compound. Women, kids. We didn't know until we were inside. The target used them as shields. My team leader called it. "We pushed anyway." Her voice was steady, but her hands weren't. "I killed 2 of the guards. The target tried to run. I put him down. But in the chaos, one of the kids grabbed a rifle. He couldn't have been more than 12. He pointed it at my teammate." She stopped. "Garza didn't push. I hesitated," she said quietly. "Half a second, that's all it was. My teammate didn't. He fired. The kid went down. We secured the site. Mission success." She looked at Garza. "But I kept thinking, if I'd moved faster, if I'd taken the shot, maybe my teammate wouldn't have had to. Maybe that kid would have just dropped the rifle. Maybe I could have talked him down. You don't know that." "No, I don't. But I think about it every day." She stood, walked to the sink, and washed her hands. "After that, I couldn't do it anymore. Couldn't make those calls, so I got out. I went to nursing school. I thought if I saved enough people, maybe it would balance out. Does it?" She turned off the water, dried her hands. No, Garza stood, wincing as his ribs shifted. He walked over to her, stopped a few feet away. For what it's worth, he said. You saved 3 lives tonight. Mine included, and you didn't hesitate, not once, I know, she said softly. That's the problem. Morrison found them 10 minutes later. He knocked on the doorframe, leaning on his crutch. Hey. Command S asking about you, Rivera. They want to do a commendation, some kind of ceremony. Rivera's face went cold. No. They're pretty insistent. I don't care. Tell them no. Morrison looked at Garza. Garza shook his head. Morrison sighed. All right. I'll pass it along. After he left, Rivera grabbed her pack from the corner and slung it over her shoulder. Where are you going? Garza asked. Shift S over. Rivera let it go. Chief, she looked at him one last time. I'm just a nurse. That's all I want to be. She walked out into the night and Garza didn't follow. By morning, the base was a different place. The perimeter was reinforced with concrete barriers and razor wire. A platoon of Marines had moved in to hold the position until a full security assessment could be completed. Helicopters came and went, ferrying out the wounded, bringing in supplies. The field hospital was still operational, but barely. 2 of the tents had taken shrapnel damage. The surgical bay where Rivera had held the line was scorched and pocked with bullet holes. Garza walked through it at dawn alone. The bodies were gone. The blood had been cleaned. But the evidence was still there. Spent casings on the floor, a shattered IV stand, the supply cabinet still wedged against the door. He stood in the center of the room and tried to picture it again. The dark, the chaos. Rivera moving through it like water. He couldn't reconcile the 2 versions of her. The quiet nurse who never made eye contact. And the operator who had killed 5 men in under 6 minutes without breaking a sweat. Morrison found him there, limping in on his crutch. Command's here. They want to debrief us now? Yeah. Conference tent? Full team. Garza nodded and followed him out. The debrief took 2 hours. A full-bird colonel from JSOC ran it, flanked by an intelligence officer and a JAG lawyer. They went through the timeline step by step. First contact, casualty flow, enemy composition, response time. The SEALs answered every question. They were professional, detailed. Clinical. When the colonel asked about the hospital breach, Garza laid it out. 5 hostiles, 3 killed by Rivera, 2 more after reinforcements arrived. He described her actions clearly, without embellishment. The way she'd triaged them, secured their position, and held the room until the Marines cleared the building. The colonel made notes. And this nurse, Rivera, where is she now? Garza hesitated. I don't know, sir. You do know? She finished her shift and left. I haven't seen her since. The intelligence officer leaned forward. We'd like to speak with her. For the record, I'm sure she'll cooperate, Garza said carefully. The colonel nodded. We're also recommending her for a commendation, possibly a Bronze Star. Her actions were extraordinary. Morrison shifted in his seat. Sir, with respect, she's not going to accept it. The colonel frowned. Why not? Because she doesn't want the attention. That's not her decision to make. Maybe it should be, Garza said quietly. The colonel stared at him. Excuse me, she did her job. She kept us alive. If she doesn't want recognition for it, we should respect that. The colonel's jaw tightened. I'll take that under advisement, Chief. He closed his folder. That'll be all. Dismissed, the SEALs stood and filed out. Garza was the last to leave. As he reached the door, the intelligence officer called after him. Chief Garza, a word. Garza stopped. The officer walked over, hands in his pockets, voice low. I pulled Rivera's file, he said. Took some digging, but I got it. You read it too, didn't you? Garza didn't answer. The officer smiled faintly. She's a ghost, Garza. Force Recon, Black Ops. The kind of operator we don't talk about. She walked away from all of it 2 years ago, voluntarily. No drama, no discharge board. She just left and now she's back in the fight, whether she wants to be or not. The officer's smile faded. People like her don't just disappear. They're too good. Too valuable. Someone's going to notice what she did here, and they're going to want her back. She doesn't want back, Garza said. Doesn't matter. The machine doesn't care what she wants. Garza stared at him. Stay away from her. The officer raised his hands. I'm not the one you need to worry about. He walked away, leaving Garza standing in the doorway, fists clenched. Garza went looking for her after lunch. He checked the hospital first. The other nurses said she hadn't come in for her shift. He checked her bunk. Empty. Her gear was gone. He asked the admin clerk if she'd filed any movement orders. The clerk checked the system. Yeah. She transferred out this morning, 600 hello, emergency medical resupply run to Fob Salerno. She requested the transfer, looks like it. Approved by the medical code 2 hours after the attack ended, Garza felt something tighten in his chest. She's gone? Yes, Chief. Left before dawn. He stood there for a moment, staring at the screen. Then he turned and walked out. Morrison found him that evening, sitting outside the hooch, cleaning his rifle. The sun was setting, painting the valley in shades of orange and red. She really left? Morrison asked. Garza nodded. Did she say anything? Leave a message? No. Morrison sat down beside him. That's cold, man. No, Garza said quietly. That's smart. What do you mean? Garza set down the rifle. She knew what was coming, the debriefs, the questions, the commendations, the attention. She didn't want any of it, so she left before they could pin anything on her. Why? Because she's trying to stay dead, Garza said. And people like us keep dragging her back. Morrison was quiet for a moment, then he shook his head. She saved our lives, man. We should have been able to say thank you. We did, Garza said. By letting her go. 2 days later, Garza was back in the surgical tent, getting his ribs rewrapped by one of the other nurses. The place was quieter now, cleaner, almost normal. The bullet holes had been patched, the equipment replaced. It was like the attack had never happened. While the nurse worked, Garza noticed something on the corner of the supply table. A small piece of paper folded once, tucked under a roll of medical tape. He reached for it. The nurse didn't notice. Garza unfolded it. The handwriting was small, neat, precise. Tell them I did my job. That's enough. He stared at it for a long time. Then he folded it carefully and slipped it into his pocket. The nurse finished the wrap and stepped back. You're good to go, Chief. Take it easy for another week. Thanks, Garza said. He walked out into the afternoon heat, the note heavy in his pocket. 3 months later, Garza was back stateside, rotating through a training cycle at Little Creek. He was in the chow hall with Morrison and Davis eating lunch when Morrison pulled out his phone and scrolled through a message thread. Hey, Morrison said. You remember Rivera? Garza looked up. Yeah, why? One of my buddies is at Fob Lightning. Says there's a nurse there, night shift, quiet, doesn't talk to anyone, helped stabilize a guy after an IED last week. Worked on him for an hour straight, kept him alive until the medevac arrived. Morrison looked at Garza. Sounds familiar, right? Garza didn't say anything. He just took another bite of his food. You think it's her? Davis asked. Probably. Garza said. You gonna reach out, try to find her? Garza shook his head. No, why not? Because she doesn't want to be found. Morrison frowned. That doesn't bother you? Garza thought about the note. About the way she'd looked at him that last night in the hospital, tired and heavy and trying so hard to be someone she wasn't. No, he said quietly. It doesn't. Some people didn't want the spotlight. Didn't want the recognition. Didn't want to be reminded of who they used to be. They just wanted to do the work, save the lives. And disappear into the next shift, the next base, the next quiet corner where no one knew their name. Rivera was one of them, and Garza respected that. He finished his meal, threw his tray away, and walked out into the Virginia sun. Somewhere out there in some forward operating base on the edge of the world, a quiet nurse was working the night shift. Saving lives, asking for nothing. That was enough.